So we're gonna do a sponge challah recipe from Marcy Goldman. This is a wonderful, delicious recipe that makes a great challah. So we're gonna start with 1.5 cups of warm water. And that water is about 86 degrees is perfect. And we just pour that, I pour this straight into the mixing bowl because then it's easy. I only have one thing to wash. And I have 2 tablespoons of yeast, which is this yeast that I use. And I'm gonna just pour that right on top of the water. I'm gonna let that just kind of sit for a second. And then I'm gonna just start to whisk it up. I just wanna get it mixed and have it settle itself and have it start to interact with the warm water. And this is the beginning of the sponge. Actually, when I add the flour, that will really be the beginning of the sponge. So I like to get all the yeast mixed up so that it's totally incorporated with the water. And I think that helps so that the bread later on doesn't just smell like yeast. So there you go. It's kind of just like this milky water, a little bubbly from the stirring. And then I'm going to do 2 cups of bread flour, and I like to use either Bob's or King Arthur bread flour. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but there's it doesn't have to be perfectly measured, but about 2 cups of flour. Whoops. It goes straight into there. And then I also just whisk that together. Until it's all incorporated. I don't want to overmix. I just want to get it all incorporated, and it will transform itself. Okay, and that's about it. And it looks kind of funky, you know, very sticky. And this we're going to let sit for about 30 to 60 minutes. Depends on how it, how well it starts to incorporate. You'll see that it will change. And then I cover it with a shower cap. You can cover it with whatever you want, but it's going to sit in a, non-drafty place. And it's just going to sit for 30 to 60 minutes. Okay, we're back. The sponge has now rested for an hour. This is what it looks like. It's bubbly. It's more than doubled in its size. And I'm just going to stir it down. And you see it's kind of like stringy. It's got all these holes in it. It looks gorgeous, actually. This is the way you want it to look. I don't stir too much. That's it. And then I'm going to get this off. And this is, I forgot what this is called, but this is a great little instrument.
Danish whisk.
It's a Danish whisk. It's perfect for starters. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now what I like to do is I like to add the sugar. I've measured out 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and I sprinkle it right on top of the dough, the starter. Then I take the warm water, a 1/2 cup of warm water, and I pour that over. Oh, whoops, that was the oil. Okay, start again. Here, this is actually, I like to put the warm water over the sugar. It helps to melt it. Then I'm gonna add 3 eggs. The recipe calls for 3 whole eggs and a yolk. I just add 3 eggs. I just can't be bothered. Sorry. Okay, then I'm gonna add the oil, which is a 1/2 cup of, I like to use a sunflower oil. You can use any vegetable oil. Some people even like to use an olive oil, but for me that's a little funky. Okay, then I take I just added my oil, and I take my cup and I invert it, because eventually I'm gonna add the dough into this cup, and so it needs to be a greased bowl. And okay, so I've added that, and then I'm going to start adding my flour. Now I've measured out 4 cups here, but I want to show you that when I'm measuring, I kind of loosen the flour because I don't want it so packed. So, and then I'm just gonna scoop out a cup, and also, you know, it doesn't have to be measured perfectly, but I like to kind of get about a cup of flour, but I don't like it packed in. Okay, so it would be added into this. I'm gonna start putting it into here right now. And I'm gonna add the rest of my flour. So that's 5 cups of flour altogether. Now what I like to do is now I add my salt. This is 3½ teaspoons of salt, which is actually a tablespoon and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I add it on top of the flour. I don't want it to mix with the yeast, like all at once. And then I just kind of mix in the salt. Okay, and that is really it. This is now gonna go onto the KitchenAid mixing machine. What does this look like back here? Okay, so now I happen to have a commercial KitchenAid mixer, and I'm gonna use, of course, I'm gonna use the dough hook, because we're gonna make dough. And okay, and there it goes on. So if you have a smaller one, you may want to cut the recipe in half, or you want to make the full recipe, and then this just gets mixed lightly. This is going to get, it's just going to get combined together, and then it's going to rest. Okay, so it's just combining. I'm not going to mix it all to the end result, but it's just going to combine like this. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it off. So that's just been like 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, now it's going to rest, and I'm going to put a damp towel around it. So this is just a damp towel, and it's going to rest for 12 minutes. Okay, so now the dough has rested, and actually it's rested, I made a mistake. It's not 12 minutes, but it rests from 15 to 20 minutes, and I like to let it rest for 18 minutes. So we have a high resting. Anyway, it looks kind of funky, you can see. And then now we're gonna turn it on. I'm gonna have it mix for 12 minutes. And the reason why I let it rest is so that the dough can relax. And so now it's just gonna mix for 12 minutes, and I'm gonna be looking at it to make sure that it's not too wet. So every so often I'm going to stop and I'm just going to touch it. And it's quite nice. It's not too wet, it's not too dry. So I'm just going to let it mix now for 12 minutes. Okay, so I just turned off the mixer. It's come off. And you can see I'm pressing down. None of it is sticking to my fingers. It's very smooth. And that's how you want it to be. And then I have this lovely little tool, which helps me just scrape the dough very easily out. I'm going to just flour my surface a little bit. And I'm going to turn out my dough. And preferably you want to do this all in a warm kitchen. No drafts. Okay, that's good. Get all the dough because it means another slice of bread. Okay, so here we've got this beautiful, really beautiful dough. And I'm just going to knead it a couple of times. I'm going to get a little bit more flour. And just going to knead it a couple of times. Another minute or so. And look at how beautiful. It's such a smooth surface. I mean, it's probably the softest part of your skin. If you want to make a comparison, you know, like a baby's skin is how smooth you want it to be. Notice it's not sticking. It's just, this is a gorgeous dough. Okay, so now we've got it in a nice round shape. Now I've got my large bowl, and I've had my oil. And I'm just gonna spread the oil on the bowl all around, even on the edges, because it will rise. And I'm gonna take my dough and I'm gonna just turn it over like that so it gets some oil on the top. And that's to help so that it doesn't form a skin. Now I'm gonna just cover it with a large paper bag, and it's going to rest for about an hour, and it should at least double in size, and that's it. It'll rest for an hour. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is my dough is risen. It's still in the plastic bag. But what I do is you have the egg that you're going to use. Okay. The egg that you're going to use to coat the challah with. And I have a little bit, pinch of salt and a pinch of sugar. And I'm just going to mix that up. Okay, so here's my dough, which, as you can see, it really rose beautifully. I had to actually turn on the oven because it was very chilly in here. And so now I'm just going to punch it down. See all the beautiful bubbles there. Wow. Okay, so we're going to punch it down. And then I have a little scale that I keep nearby so that I'm going to measure. I think I put a little too much oil, but anyway. Okay, now I'm going to dump it out, and I actually do not put flour underneath because I'll do that later. Oh, it is a little bit too much oil. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh, I'm probably going to have about close to 10 pounds, 5 pounds of dough. But I want to measure it again, measure it. Yep, 5 pounds. So now I'm going to start dividing. Actually, I'm going to do La Friche. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu La Friche Challah. Okay, there we go. And blessings for everybody. Everybody should be healthy. Everybody that wants to get married should find their beshert. Okay. I'm going to divide this actually into, I'm going to make about a 2-pound loaf for us for Shabbos, for Shabbat. And I'm going to measure. Oh, that's only, okay, that's a small one. Okay, almost. Let me put a little bit more in there. There we go. Okay, so this is 2. The other ones I'm going to probably divide into 2 loaves. I'm going to save actually a little piece, and we're going to make some cinnamon rolls. So that'll be for later. Put that back in the bag and let that rest. And I'm going to do a 6 braided challah. So I'm going to divide in half. And then into thirds. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure these so that I can get them fairly even.
Weigh, not measure.
I'm going to weigh them. I'm going to weigh them. That's a little big. Oh, that's very big. Okay, so this goes with this. A little bit here, a little bit there. All right, they're all pretty much about the same. And then what I like to do is I like to, and I just put a little bit of flour on the rolling pin, but I like to roll each one of these that's going to become, so I have a smooth side here, and this is a less kind of funky side, and I just roll that in And these are gonna be my strands. So since I didn't put I didn't put any flour on them, they roll really nicely. They seem to roll a little bit better. They're a little bit more malleable. And then, but I will dust them with flour before I join them all. Okay, so when I do roll these snakes, I do try to have them be a little bit fatter in the middle than on the ends, so that it gives a nice shape to the challah. Okay, you can cut. Okay, so we're finished up, and you can see that there's a little bit more in the center. I try to get a little bit more in the center than on the ends. And then what I'm gonna do is just dust it with a little bit of flour. And that's so that they still stay separated when I braid them together. So you'll see a difference in the dough. They just won't meld into one blob. Okay. That's good. Okay. So now I'm going to situate them. And connect them, squish them together. Okay, so I have six strands here. Yeah, see, you don't want them to, right here, they're kind of blobbing together. And I want to keep them separate. Okay. And I'm going to take the number 2 strand and fold it, just lay it over the other ones. The number 6 strand is coming back over here. It's going to become number 1. And then this folds over down the middle in between the 2 end ones. Now we go back again across. This now comes over and down the middle, and this end one comes across. Over again. Make sure that this stays stuck together. I do sometimes have a little difficulty with that. And this one, this end one comes across, and this one comes over. This comes over, and this comes down the middle. This becomes the middle, and here we go again. So you just keep doing that. It gets a little bit more difficult towards the end. And, whoops, there we go, that's it. I missed the middle. There's the middle. This comes back over. This comes over. Okay, this comes over. Okay, and now we're just going to squish them together. And here, now we have a beautiful little challah that is also going to, we have to allow to rise for about another hour. Now, the amount of time that I actually gave all of this to rise, the whole dough, was about an hour and a half. So now I'm going to do my egg wash. Just brush it on over the challah. Make sure you get into all the little crevices. Now, you don't have to do a 6 braid. I just showed you, but I always like to do that one for the Shabbos challah. You can do a 4 braid or a 3 braid, whatever, whatever you like. It's okay. Whatever's easiest for you. Okay. And then I just try to get out any bubbles that are in there. And that's pretty good. Now I'm just going to shake on the sesame seeds. Okay. And that's it. That's all she wrote. And then you're going to have a gorgeous challah. This is going to rise for about another 60 minutes in a warm place. So I actually put it over by the oven. My oven is actually heating now. And I'll let that rise for about 60 minutes while I'm making my other challahs. And that's it. Okay, so I just want to point out that I put these on parchment paper and they're ready to go into the oven. They've been sitting out for about an hour and they've risen Okay, so I just want to point out that I've put these on parchment paper and they've risen for about an hour and they're ready to go into the oven at 350. It's been preheated at 350 degrees. And they're going to go on a middle rack. And there they go. Now I'm going to check them in about 10 minutes. Because they will rise again, and I'm just going to check to see how they are, and I will probably do a little egg wash on them. Okay, so now I'm going to just check on the challahs and see how much, look at how much they've risen. This is about 20 minutes in. I usually like to check around 10 minutes or so, and I do a little touch-up egg wash in the middles, because the challah is expanded, and so there's places where it hasn't received egg wash. So that's what I'm doing right now, right in the cracks. And you'll see that it will really make a more even brown challah. And this is also, so when I'm baking 3 challahs like this, it usually takes about an hour for the baking. If I'm just doing one, it may take anywhere from 25, 35, 45 minutes. It just depends. You just have to watch it and, you know, see how it progresses. Okay, so they are out of the oven. It took about 65 minutes for all 3. And what I also did was I rotated them front to back, and then I also rotated them, like I turned them around like that so that they would get brown on all sides like that. Now I'm going to put them on their cooling rack, and 65 minutes I said.
How long will they cool?
Oh, and then you should let them cool for as long as they take, which, yeah, at least a half an hour, if, you know, if not longer. But really let them cool so that the flour will combine together. It will taste better if it's not straight, if you don't cut it straight hot out of the oven. And Shabbat Shalom, and enjoy your challah.